Guys, something a little bit different. Taking a break from my Top Flight Gold Edition Sea Fury bash, and I threw together this Guillows PiperCub laser cut kit. And just to give you an idea of mistakes along the way and some really nice things I found out. So I tried the new tissue covering process, which was for me is new. Easy Dope. Easy Dope wasn't around when I was a kid, so it's great material. I love how it shrinks the tissue. Tons of videos online. I bought the Horizon UMX brick used on RC groups, so everything you see here is used. The motor, the main brick, and the two servos. So as a result, the initial gluing that occurred on whomever sold this to me created raised surfaces in the servos and in the brick, which creates challenges because they're such a delicate little panel. So this was my first attempt to mount it. Pretty sloppy, as you can see. And this is my second attempt, much better. I just put rails to raise the servo up to avoid the gluing tabs from the original builder, which are pretty big, and keep a level surface. The control horns are simple, thin ply. The biggest challenges with this type of model, which you really have to think about, is that when you're drilling a hole for these micro-sized push rods, you're going to get play in that hole unless you're literally using a pin to make those holes. So that's one thing I would go back and change. The hinges, this extra hinge will be removed before I put in the covering. It's another thing. Now, I was looking at trying a couple things. This is stock tissue from the kit, which I absolutely love. This is a covering from Stevens Aero, which gives you a nice glossy finish, but I have to tell you, I just don't like it. It's transparent, so you'll see anything you've done on the wood. Any markings, lines, drawings, because these are modified, and you know, I thought the cover material would actually cover it, so that's a mistake I made, and it also made me rethink how I'm covering the entire model, which will be in tissue, because I just love the taunt ability and how easy this is to use. There's a couple different methods online about applying tissue. You know, Elmer's glue to glue the edges. I just used watered down Easy Dope, followed the instructions, did the edge of the surfaces, let it dry, and then once that's dry, you go back and do the entire surface so it pulls taut, and you get a great tight finish that you can't get with an iron. And I think the Stevens Aero material, plus from a budgetary standpoint, 2 rolls of Stevens Aero with shipping was $27. That's more than the kit itself costs, but I was willing to give it a try. If you're a traditional RC guy that flies larger planes like me, mostly everything I fly is larger, the biggest challenge you're going to have with these micro systems is actually building the push rod while it's in the fuselage. And so it takes logic and sequential ability to know, do this first, do that first. So I had attached my push rods, attached the shrink tube, glued them, tested them, and then on the rear end, you can see here, a little sloppy. The tubes have to be shrunk, but same thing. A lot easier on the back end because you can insert your rods into your homemade control horns and then attach it to the tube and put the shrink wrapper tube over it. Over here you cannot, because you can't turn anything. It's just a lot more difficult. Think about everything before you put it in. My battery's going to go in here. I'm going to play with the CG. These Guillows laser cut kits are just absolutely phenomenal. The parts just fall out. You're going to see some modifications over here. There's a panel here that'll be sanded down. There'll be another one that goes right here. Why is that? Because as I cover from right to left, I'm going to leave these two blank until I put my very lightweight supports through the center fuselage canopy parts, and that's how my wings are going to be aligned. It's already been tested and be perfectly level. Unlike the kit, which you're really just eyeing it and attaching it with no lateral support. So once those are assembled, then I'll go back and just throw some covering on the bottom of the wing. The wing itself builds pretty straight and true if you're careful. I use this, which is a Lowe's sheet of aluminum from Lowe's for like $25, and magnets from Harbor Freight, and you have a great magnetic building board. There's no pins in the wood at all, especially on the thinner wood, which allows, for less structural challenges to the wood. So it just takes some careful thinking. The kit itself, super easy to build. The challenge is these bricks, the brick electronics, and playing with the push rods. I think in the future, I'd rather go with micro servos that look traditional, like traditional servos. You could remove the arms, you could install them, remove the arms, loop over to your push rod, put it back down. It's so much easier than the challenges of these tiny little micro push rods that you have to really think out before you put into your plane. To me, that was the biggest challenge, and from what I've seen online, that's the challenge that most people run into. So I'm in the home stretch here now. All that's left is really extensive sanding, because I really want to clean this up and try to lighten up some of these parts. And then I'm going to do a final tissue covering. I wish I had never covered the tail in the Stevens Aero. I'm sure it's great stuff and some people love it. For me, it was more difficult to use than monocoat, ultra coat, or a cover. And I didn't like the transparency of it. Also, last thing I'll say is this is where experience comes in, and I didn't realize it. I made a mistake. So when you're building your parts, you should try to keep your numeric part identifiers on the bottom. So when you go to, no matter what kind of covering you use, they're not going to show through. So at least when I do this tissue covering, you're not going to see the numbers of those parts, which could have easily been flipped and been over here. Over here you can see my calculations to make a scale counterbalance. You can see them right through the covering. So it looks a little sloppy, less aesthetics. When I attach these to the fuselage, you can see if I go on this side, that letter will be cut up, but that's an example of where this would go like this on the inside, and the letter will be facing inward. So if you this is going to make a lot of people laugh, but I just discovered these CA fine tip glue ends, and it's, to me, the stupidest thing I've never tried, and the best stupid invention that's ever been made, because it keeps the CA fresh, it keeps your nozzle open, and it dispenses just the right amount, and you can reuse them. I've gone through a few, and then I just clip the end off until I'm pretty far down, and then I go to a new one. So love it, absolutely love the CA. So that's about it for today. Pretty soon I'll be back on my Sea Fury with the final details from Top Flight.